Let's just ask the audience here. What do you think is the number one contributor to inflammation in your body? You ready?
Sugar.
Sugar. She got it right on the nose. Sugar, number one, sugar. I know, it's such a depressing news, like sugar. Why? I mean, it tastes so good. It's how can it be so bad for you? It always amuses me, right? My mother used to tell me, son, everything that tastes good is generally bad for you. Everything that tastes bad is generally good for you. Chinese herbs, for example. Anybody have Chinese herbs? Or have never had it? You've never had Chinese herbs? You should try it. We have some here tonight. I invite you to try it. But anyway, sugar. Well, sugar is very corrosive to the body. Small amounts, okay, but excess amounts stays in your body, and it really literally begins to work on your nerve endings and other things. So it creates this really destructive tendency. Now, what are some of the other things? Now, someone says stress. There's no question, stress hormones increases inflammation, cortisol, right? So when you're stressed, cortisol releases, you have inflammation. So you got to also look at here. If your mind is very stressed out, if you're stuck, if you can't get off whatever that you're mad at or you're depressed about, whatever, you're only doing yourself harm. Do you realize that? I mean, you're actually sort of doing yourself a disservice. You always hear this, right? It's not worth it to get whatever, upset, angry, pissed off, whatever it is, right? It's not worth it because you're only hurting yourself. Your mother used to say it to you. Be a believer, but that's absolutely true. You're just hurting yourself. So try to be gentle and be loving towards yourself. And happiness ultimately is a choice. Really, at the end of the day, you choose how you want to feel, right? You do choose it. I mean, I walk down the street sometimes and a homeless person starts cursing at me. I've even had homeless people chase after me. Do I look that odd? I don't know. They chase after me. Anyway, so, but I try not to, let that bother me. I just, go, oh, whatever, They're having a bad day, but I'm having a good day. So I choose that. So stress. What are some of the other factors that you can remember or that you suspect maybe? A lack of sleep. Of course, lifestyle, right? I mean, if you don't sleep well, your body is going to get stressed out and it is going to become more inflamed. But anything else? Now, let's think about food for a second. Other foods.
Wheat.
Okay, so one thing at a time. You guys are overwhelming me. Okay, so wheat. I'll talk about wheat for a second, all right? So a lot of people, how many people are actually on a gluten-free diet, including my kids over there? Gluten-free diet. I will tell you that there's probably about 2.5 million people in America that are diagnosed with celiac disease, which is a sensitivity to gluten. It's a protein in the wheat, right? But there are at least another 20 million people that have sensitivity to gluten and are not diagnosed with celiac. I'm going to give you a challenge today. So we go home for the next week, stop eating anything with gluten, just to try an experiment. All right. So what else contains gluten? Wheat, barley, rye, and sometimes oats. Okay. So just for a week, eat no bread, no pasta, and anything that's made with these 4 items, and then see how you feel. A lot of people with gluten sensitivity develop an immunological response. Not in the stomach where they have pain and inflammation, but they just feel tired. They feel spacey. They gain weight. I have so many patients who I took off gluten, not necessarily because of their weight, but because I sensed they were having gluten allergy and sensitivity. And a week later they come back and says, Doc, I don't know what happened, but I lost 4 pounds in a week. 4 pounds from not eating pasta and bread and so forth. I mean, add up all the calories, it's not enough to lose 4 pounds. But something else going on. If you are sensitive, having immunological response like inflammation, you retain water. And what is that water? Water is weight. I mean, you gain weight. So sometimes you notice that the weight comes off right away because some of that water that's been retaining in your body all this time will actually fall off. Okay, so gluten. Anything else?
Alcohol.
Dairy?
Dairy.
So what do you think of that? Dairy.
There's a big one. Dairy right up there with gluten. I mean, these are substances that require more of your body's energy to break down and pass through your system. So when you are challenged with things like gluten, things like cow dairy in particular, because, well, unfortunate to the cow, the last 100 years or so have been kind of unkind to this gentle beast. And so we've pumped it full of stuff. We use it for pretty much everything in lots of products. And what's happened over the last 150 years or so is that the protein in, the milk protein, in cows in particular, has become very strange. And our body has no idea what to do with this. And so what happens is when things that our body has no idea what to do with, such as the mass-produced gluten products or cow dairy, is that we try to flush it out. And when this flushing process happens, body fluids are upped, they tend to congeal, they get in your joints, they slow your metabolism, they create more weight, more pain, low energy, kind of a cascade if you can see where I'm going with this. So what happens with dairy is if you remove something like cow dairy, or better yet, substitute for something else. I have a 3-year-old, and unfortunately we couldn't breastfeed for as long as we wanted to, and Mao helped me understand this idea about cow dairy versus, say, goat dairy, sheep dairy. The protein in these other types of milk are actually much more similar to human milk. We metabolize and digest these types of dairy much more easily, and that list of responses becomes much less. We don't feel as many of these pains or these metabolic issues, and the weight doesn't come on as much. And of course, when I recommend this to patients, we're like, goats, no way. So I'm like, try it. It actually tastes great. And my son loves it, my wife loves it, I love it. And it tastes really good. A variety of different brands and tastes if you want to shop around. But I mean, I would equate his week-long challenge for wheat. I'd say throw cow milk in there too, and you'll feel that much better. It sounds like we're taking away your whole week's worth of food, but believe me, there's substitutes like I just gave you. And if you want bread and pasta, by the way, you can find it made of millet, quinoa.
It's not that bad. We took away the sugar, the bread,
Right.
the dairy.
What else is there?
Well, now I'm going to take a few more things now. Nightshades. You know what nightshades are? Okay. Tomatoes, potatoes, eggplants, and peppers. I know. There's some Italians in this room here. They're going to hate me. But it's really interesting because American nightshades are kind of different than European nightshades. The species are a little different, and the way they grow, and so forth. I mean, how many people have gone to Europe and eaten some of the best tomatoes? You ever tried that? Yeah, you have, right? And how many people have had good tomatoes here in the supermarket? You know what they do? They pick tomatoes when they're green. They ship it across the country, and then they gas it with ethylene gas. So, to ripen it, right? So this is how tomatoes come. That's why they don't taste good. Plus, they are not ripe, so they have higher solanine. Now, the reason why they're called nightshades, they belong in this category of plants that with its most famous cousin called belladonna. Belladonna is a very toxic substance that was the favored poison used by people in medieval time, right? Medieval Europe, they used to poison people with belladonna, and it left no trace. It was the perfect poison, and so. And in the same family, belladonna are potatoes, tomatoes, eggplants, and peppers. They contain an alkaloid called solanine. Solanine, to the immune system, all right, to someone who has a genetic predisposition to inflammation, is going to react. So your body will react to the solanine. That's why we'll have patients who we treat for, let's say, arthritis, right? They feel better, and then next week they come back, they say, Doc, I mean, my conditions flared up 10 times worse. And we said, well, what did you have the night before? Well, I don't know. I went out to a restaurant with my wife, and I ordered some pasta. What came with the pasta? What was a tomato pasta? It's tomatoes. It can't do that much flaring of the inflammation. So this is why, if you have inflammation, you need to pay attention. You need to watch what you eat, what you put in your body, because that's the first thing that happens. Something enters your body, creates an immunological response, and then you've got a cascaded inflammation that goes on. Okay.